One of the most common errors that I see on a daily basis in lessons is related to ball position. The ball's too far back, the ball's too far forwards, mostly too far forwards. Now there's a couple of different ideas on where the ball should be in your stance. Today we're going to talk about my preferences. It's also hard to tell from your perspective where the ball is in your stance, so I'm going to show you a little bit of a practice station. Let's go. G'day guys, Mike Bury here. Welcome back to another video. If you are new, this is your first time here, don't forget, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell as well so that you don't miss out on any of the new content. We've got plenty coming your way. If you've been around and you haven't subscribed, you got one more step to do, actually two more. Hit subscribe, notification bell, and then it's happy days. I am so pumped about today's video. If you want to hit the ball consistently solid and straight, then ball position is kind of important, because if it's too far forwards, which is generally the most common issue that I see, we're going to increase the chance of hitting the ball fat. That means we're going to increase the chance of hitting the ball thin. Also, when the ball's too far forwards in your stance, your club is going to be exiting, let's call it more left for a right-handed player. And that's going to lead to more of a, let's call it an outside in or potentially a fade path. Now, you're also catching it a little later in the swing, which means the club face is going to be a little bit closed. So we could hit pulls, pull hooks. But we also know that some of you guys don't want to hit it left too, and you're going to end up holding onto it. Now all of a sudden we're losing them to the right. And you can see how difficult it is to consistently hit it straight when the ball is not in the right spot, not to mention solid. Now, why is ball placement so difficult? Well, there's a couple of reasons. Number one is that there's a couple of different schools of thought on where the ball should be played in your stance. One school of thought is ball played in the same position with every club, same width of stance for every club. Another school of thought, this is where I am, the ball should be played in a different place and there's a different width of stance depending on the club. And again, we're going to dive into that in today's video. The other issue is that when we're looking down, the player's field of vision can be a little bit misleading on where the ball is in your stance. So the way that it looks to the golfer is not necessarily where it actually is in your stance. That's why we have these issues. Now, as we mentioned earlier in this video, there's a few things that you're going to see if the ball is in the incorrect spot, in particular with your irons. If the ball is too far forwards, fat, thin, path, face, those are all the things that are going to tell the ball how solid it was hit and also what direction it's going to go. We're actually going to start with the ball position for a 7-iron and we're going to work backwards from there. So with the 7-iron, I like to see the ball position in the middle of the stance, and I like to see the width of stance about middle of shoes, shoulder width apart. Now, as we go shorter, let's say into an 8-iron, we're going to keep the ball in the middle of the stance and the stance is going to get slightly narrower. As we now dive into a 9-iron, again, with slightly narrower, ball stays in the middle of the stance. Pitching wedge, sand wedge, same thing. By the time we get into a pitching wedge, the outside of our hips and the outside of our shoes are about the same width apart. Now, as we get into a 6-iron, the ball's going to go slightly more forwards than our 7-iron position. So it's a little bit ahead of center and our stance is a little bit wider. Again, going into a 5-iron, ball goes slightly more forwards, a little bit wider. Same thing with a 4-iron. By the time we get to a hybrid or say a 3 or 4-iron, that golf ball is about one club head sideways from the inside of our lead foot. With your fairway woods, I like to see them all in about the same spot. So whether it's a 3, 5, 7, 9, even an 11 wood, I like to see them all in the same spot. And that's about a ball, maybe even a ball and a half inside of that lead heel. Now, getting into the driver, obviously we want that more forwards in our stance. We've got a big wide stance now because we want to sweep up on this ball so we can launch it up in the air with low spin, and that ball's going to carry a long way and you're going to hit as far as you possibly can. I like to see the ball either in line with the inside of that lead heel. It could be slightly inside of it. I definitely don't like seeing it forwards of that lead heel. That again is going to start to get that path moving potentially a little too far left. For most of you golfers that are already slicing out there, that wouldn't be ideal. If you do make a mistake with ball position at any time, I'd rather see it a little further back than a little further forwards. That's going to allow us to at least strike the ball before we hit the ground. Okay, so I know that there's quite a bit there. So let's simplify it into 3 ball positions, and then we know that everything falls one side or the other. Okay, 7-iron, middle of the stance. Shoes, middle of shoes, shoulder width apart. Getting down into a pitching wedge, ball still stays in the middle of the stance, outside of the shoes, outside of the hips, same width apart. On the other end of the spectrum, driver, big wide stance. So the inside of your feet, inside of your heels, shoulder width apart, ball all the way up to that front foot, just inside of that lead heel. Now, there will be times where the ball does go back in your stance, even back of middle, and that's going to be when you're trying to flight the shot down. So what we've talked about today is really for standard full swing flights. So we're not trying to flight it up, we're not trying to flight it down, just hitting stock full shots. Also with short game shots, there's going to be times where you're going to put the ball back in your stance so you can hit a little low, chip and run, all that sort of thing. But really, like I said, we're talking about stock full swings today. Now, we did talk earlier on about the player's perspective, where a player is looking. It's much easier for your playing partners or myself as a coach to see where your ball placement is, as opposed to you being able to tell where it is. And one of the reasons is when we're looking down, we can kind of see like from our toes forwards out towards the golf, but we don't really see like back where our heels are. And that's our best indication of where the ball is relative to our stance. So you can see here, like if I take my setup with my feet close together, you can see right now it's very obvious that the ball is in the middle of my stance. Now, if I flare my front foot out a little bit, now it looks like that ball is back in my stance from the golfer's perspective. From the coach's perspective or from your buddy's perspective, you can see very easily that that's still in the middle of your stance, but there's an illusion created from that toe flare. And when we do take our setup, we do have a little bit more turn out on our front foot. Both feet are a little bit turned out. That's why it's a little bit difficult to tell from your own perspective. Now, when you're trying to practice this and you're trying to figure out, okay, where does my ball go? Where is it? And how do I be consistent with it? Throw down a practice station when you're at the driving range. Put one alignment stick down to where it points directly at the target and another one perpendicular to that with a little bit of a hitting space. So that's where you're going to hit your shots from, and you're going to look at where the alignment stick is relative to the inside of your left and right heels. Obviously here we're hitting off of turf, so we're not creating divots. If you're out on a grass range, you knock some divots out. Don't just start wandering around with where that ball is. Keep it in line with that stick. So if that means you have to move that stick that is perpendicular to the target line, either backwards or forwards, then do so, just so you keep consistent and get that accurate feedback. Guys, big things coming to the channel this year for you guys. We really want you guys to play your best golf. Lots of really good collaborations. We've got huge things. I'd really appreciate it. Throw a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell so you don't miss out. We have so many cool things coming up. Guys, of course, until next time, good golfing.